The following is a conversation with Dan Williams. Dan is the owner of Williams Fence and Blueberry Brook Farm Resort. He's also the co-creator of the Daniel Barden Mudfest, and he is currently building a mountain bike track called Danimal Land. Dan is a high-energy guy that pushes the envelope when it comes to business, endurance sports, and life in general. I became friends with Dan back in 2012 when he became part of our co-movement community. He never ceased to amaze me when doing things like running 4 miles to group class, then doing the class, and then running 4 miles home after. He decided one year to run 17 miles to the start of the Boilermaker 15K road race. Another year, I got a phone call from him saying that he built a zip line going into his pond, and he wanted to get a group of people together in April up in Central New York to join in on the fun. It's these things and many others that inspire me to live a larger life. And for that reason, I am excited to chat with Dan today. You are listening to the Co-Movement Gym podcast, where we inspire people to move and live courageously. If you are enjoying this content, please support our sponsors in the description. I thank each and every one of you for being on this journey with us. Now, please enjoy the show. Folks, listen up. I want to take a brief moment and thank our podcast show sponsors, Lombardi Chiropractic, Native Path Supplements, and Redmond Life. Lombardi Chiropractic has been my personal chiropractor for 10 years and has kept my body strong and healthy. Native Path Supplements are used by numerous co-movement clients and our coaching team here at the facility. I highly recommend that you try their chocolate collagen peptides. I was made aware of Redmond Life by one of our trainers here at the facility, who recommended I try Relight Electrolyte Powder. This supplement has dramatically improved my afternoon energy levels and overall hydration. I'd like to thank these 3 companies for providing outstanding service and products that make our society healthier and more resilient. Mention the Co-Movement Gym podcast when you call Lombardi Chiropractic, and not only will they treat you like family, they will provide a nice, enticing discount to all listeners. And use code COMO15, that's C-O-M-O 15, at checkout when shopping at nativepath.com or redmond.life and receive 15% off all your orders. Your support to our show sponsors assists in us paying for expenses and continuing to provide content we hope you all enjoy. Dan, welcome to the show, buddy. How you doing?
Doing great, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been, obviously we've been friends for quite some time. I've been following some of your most recent things with Danimal Land and Farm Resort there, and it just inspired me to reach out to you. We had a phone call not too long ago also, and you're one of the few people that motivates me and inspires me. You're sort of always have the gas down. You're always pushing forward, doing cool things. So I wanted to have you on and chat about a bunch of your different projects and some of your mindset and all of that. So welcome, bud.
Thank you, Josh.
So first and foremost, the question I have to ask is, how do you stay so motivated each day, pushing forward? How do you do that?
Oh man, I don't ADHD, I think is a good part of it. I always tell people when I was a kid, it was like slow down. You stop running everywhere and that sort of thing. It is difficult. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are times where it's like, man, I fight my battles too. Um, but honestly, my mom died at 52 of an aneurysm, and that really was super impactful for me because I was like, man, as I start to approach 50, I'm thinking, I don't know what happens after this life, but I do know what I got right now. So that's something I think about every day. I have her picture, right where I put my underwear on in the morning. So it's one of those reminders that, you don't know about tomorrow, and today is all you got. So that's probably
Mhm.
my number one motivator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have days? I'm assuming you do, but um, I know for myself, motivation comes and goes, right? Like I hit these high peaks and then I'm in that middle ground and then I hit lows. When you're in a low or you're not really as focused as you'd like to be, how do you get out of that? Is there anything that you do to pull you out of that?
I've actually hired a coach recently who's really helped me. Things got pretty, pretty nuts for me, even by my standards. Just running an organization and getting up to about 50 people with that. I hit a breaking point last February. Um,
Hmm.
so so for me, I don't know. I just I get up every day with some goals. I wrote some stuff down last night of things I wanted to accomplish today, and
Hmm.
started the day off this morning. Not as early as I wanted. I didn't get in till maybe 11 something, and then the hamster wheel was running pretty hard in my brain last night. So at 2 o'clock, I put on an audio book and started listening to that. So sometime after two, I actually fell asleep. So it's it's tough every day. For me, like I said, I just kind of go back to that. Like, man, if I have a bad day, I also something that happened when mom died that I I guess I tricked myself was that you know what, this is horrible. Can't bring her back, but I definitely have it so much better than so many other people that either
Hmm.
didn't have a mom or had a shitty mom or whatever, or they died much younger. And so I kind of use that as fuel to keep going on. And then I think about people like yourself that say that I'm inspiring them.
Hmm.
And again, that's just, it's like a few different ingredients that get me out in the morning. Um, I just went on this Ricky trip, Ricky, my van, with my best friend from college. And um, I was telling him that my original Ricky trip, I went 2 years ago during COVID. We did 2 months out in the Rocky Mountain
Hmm.
area in the desert. And my goal was to do something rad every day. So radical, whatever that was. And it didn't have to be like, you know, skiing Aspen necessarily. It could have been like one day was just going up to Teton Pass and putting on my AT gear and skiing a couple laps and then going and hitting some natural hot springs. I was like, that was rad. I've never done that before. Um, I climbed this Barney Rubble little rock mound with my Rottweiler, and it turned out to be one of the most dangerous things I've ever done at the end of the trip. And I was like, all right, nobody would brag they climbed this thing. It had about 200 feet of elevation, but son of a bitch, I did it with a Rottweiler, and almost freaking both of us almost stumbled off of it. So that's what I think about, like, even now. um and it's been difficult with our business and how busy we've gotten. um my goal is to get outside doing something every day. um
Awesome.
and
Hmm.
and so I've been able to stay fit. Obviously when you and I got to know each other, I was like code red, ready to have a heart attack, 200 pounds, just drinking a lot and treating myself like general, hammer down dog shit. And flip that switch. I tell people all the time, the work that we did together back then was the catalyst for change
Hmm.
for me. I
Wow.
met you. You really got me pointed in the right direction, not just from an exercise standpoint, from a health standpoint,
Hmm.
and really sent me in a different trajectory that I'm still on today. And thank God, because 3 weeks before I started working out with you. 3 weeks later, Sandy Hook happened,
Yep.
and I just was in the right mindset to to go ahead and start the Daniel Barden Mudfest, and
Hmm.
then go down that path of really taking care of myself.
Hmm. Yeah. How long has that been, Dan? What, 10 years, right? Probably 10 or
Yeah, this
11?
so this will be our 11th year coming up on Mudfest, and
Yep.
we had a 2 year hiatus with COVID. Last
Hmm.
year was absolutely one of the hardest things I ever have had to do, was bringing that course back and just getting back up on the mud run after 2 years off.
Hmm.
It was like Chernobyl after 30 years, all the
Yep.
weeds, the trees down, uh, and then just that. it was like starting over or year one, but without all of the community really being behind it. And for me, like I was in a different place last year. So Melissa and I actually spent a good deal of time up there with our dogs
Hmm.
and just got some friends that eventually started coming in and helping. But for me, it was almost like year one, but different, getting into like a therapeutic kind of thing to go up there and just start clearing the trail and uh,
Hmm.
and then seeing the obstacles. So, I fight
Did,
those battles.
did you ever consider not bringing it back to life? Because what you're describing is it would be incredibly difficult, right? So like you're bringing something back from the dead essentially. Two years of overgrowth on the trail, and just the lack of you know drive and the communication with just having a 2 year lull, right? Like it just hasn't been out there. Did you ever consider just saying, it's had its day and moving on?
No, it was
Hmm.
just I had told Mark Barden after year one, he had come to me and said, Dan, we had amazing people do all sorts of things for us after Daniel died, and but the thing that gave us the most hope was the mud run. Can we do it
Hmm.
again? And I said, Mark, don't threaten me with a good time. We're definitely doing that. And then we expanded to 5 mile, and so half mile kids run 5K, and then the 5 mile run that second year. And I made him a promise that day that I was going to keep it going as long as I was on this planet, not just for him, but also for
Hmm.
Deansboro,
Hmm.
because I recognize like that was our field days. We used to come together as a community, for the field days once a year. Everybody would see everybody. And I got thinking about, after COVID, it was like everybody had these new patterns. People weren't really hanging out, they were pretty isolated.
Hmm.
And I was really, as much as I was like, oh my God, this is going to be an insane amount of work. And, my business is just eating my clock every day, that I just got to get up on this. So it was really hard to take those first couple steps, but it's like, when the gym, right? When
Hmm.
you, when you go to the gym or before you go to the gym, and I think this is true for probably a lot of your clients, there's a lot of dread, or there's at times there's like, oh, I don't want to do this. Then once you get in there and you start doing it, it's like, okay, all right. And then once
Hmm.
I got a day under my belt, I got to tell you, the first freaking thing that happened, I don't know if I can swear on this.
Yeah, yeah, of
I'm not
course.
gonna
Yep.
blow it up. I want some kids to hear this too, but that effing course is like double gravity and super slippery. I put my backpack leaf blower on. First thing I did day one last year, I go out to tarred and feathered. Obviously you start in the field, so there's nothing to do there. Tarred and
Yep.
feathered needed to be excavated, so I skipped over that. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to take my dogs and I'm going to leaf blow the trail starting at tarred and feathered, the first obstacle. Start the thing up, put it on my back, start to turn onto the course, slip, boom, I'm down on my back like a turtle instantly. And I fell two more times before I got my feet like into that front point, crampon style let's
Hmm.
go, because from there it's like straight up to the freaking mountain to gravity
Yep.
cavity and all that. So it was like, hey, welcome back, asshole. I'm gonna put you on your back a few times and see if you're really interested in doing this. And so yeah, for me, I had said we were gonna do it. COVID was like, it was such a killer for me. I was in a serious depressed state
Hmm.
when it happened, and that really lingered on for most of 2020
Hmm.
and into 2021, because we had such groundswell and such great corporate sponsorship. Everything was really in place on 2020.
Hmm.
My goal was to hit $100,000 raised for the year, and to really get it knocked out of the park on attendance as well, to reach 2,000 participants. Everything was lined up, and then I could just see it was like, shit, this isn't going to happen.
Hmm.
Um, and all that work is lost, and not just that, but we can't come together. And I know for a lot of the victims' families from Sandy Hook, and just for our town, it's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is something people look forward to, and I look
Mm-hmm.
forward to. It's like Christmas once a year for me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then my boy Dylan was looking to smash a couple school records in track, and that
Yep.
wasn't going to happen. Um, so me being ADHD, I was like, well, I've only worked 14 hours today. What else am I going to do? So um, I've got the video from April 25th of 2020 where I cut a hole in my fence and started making the Danimal Land trail system. And it was like, I got to tell you, Josh, I felt like the biggest freaking moron this side of the Mississippi when I was out there doing it by hand
Mm-hmm.
with this rhino. It's basically if an axe and a hoe got together and had a baby. Um,
Yeah.
it's a handle with a 6 pound piece of metal that's sharp. You can cut roots. You can dig rocks out with it. You can tamp. I bought four of those, and well, I started with one, and then eventually ended up getting four of them.
Mm-hmm.
And but I felt like such a dumbass because I was like, I own equipment. I could just buy something if I don't have it and make it. But it was a way with everything that was so crazy during 2020 for me to just like uncheck from the world and
Yep.
go out into the woods with my Labradoodle. Well, my Labradoodle didn't even exist then. I had a yellow lab at the time and my Rottweiler, and we would just go out and I would be like, to me, it was like the gym. It was therapy, and then at the end of a good session, I would look
Mm-hmm.
back and be like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I did something. Um, and then it took me a year to get the uphill trail done, it's got 8 switchbacks to go from like the high point of Danimal Land, which is right at the cabin, down to the Oriskany.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
was exactly to that day, a year later, that I got that done. And then I spent the next year just cleaning everything out in between those sections. So if it looped around and went back and forth, I would take it section by section, take all the deadfall, gather it into piles, burn it, weed eated everything, and just completely cleaned about 5 acres
Mm-hmm.
of woods um,
Wow.
by
Wow.
hand. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I want to dive in deeper with Danimal Land and the Daniel Barden Mudfest in just a little bit, but there's a question I want to ask you with your business coach there, and it sort of leads into all the stuff that you're into. Does he or have they helped you create like vision boards or like 5-year plans, 10-year plans, legacy plans, um, because that's something where I'm working through now, sort of like I just turned 40, 13 years into our brand, right? Like certain things are growing and changing. And, I think about that like long-term type stuff. Is that something that you have planned out, or is it more of a, annual thing, or how does that look for you?
So what I've been working on with Scott, honestly, with just coming into really like a CEO role for the first time. Um, I ran a business, but I wouldn't say that I really ran it effectively. It was more of a, hey guys, follow me, and it worked. It was
Mm-hmm.
so shooting from the hip. It's kind of insane. But from the things I've read, it's like, you know what? Hey, that's the way some people operate.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the coach is like a two component thing. So I hired a CFO back in January to just evaluate what we were doing, and then to help me get a handle on the finance end of it, because we went from a small business to a big business, and we did it in a pretty rapid fashion. So
Yep.
cash, what's that?
Over how long, Dan, did that happen? Like, give the listeners an idea, because you and I are talking like we already sort of know some of this, but like, what size being small, and then the time period to get to big, and how big is that?
So we're celebrating our 30th year in business this year. My dad started the business in '93 as just a sole fence business, and then while I was there day one, I built the first fence with him, and we had nothing. I mean, it was literally an F-150, a shitty trailer. I think we had to borrow a trailer when we needed to move something. We had a small skid steer and a four-wheeler, and so it was pretty small at first. We had just moved from the dairy farm where I grew up across the street, and I was a senior in high school, getting ready to go to college. So I was there day one. In '99. I graduated from college, got a desk job for like 2 weeks, and realized that wasn't for me. That was that was right when my mom had passed away. So my dad was in some serious. He had so much going on, and so I quit my job. I came back and took over field operations for him, and allowed him to just do whatever he needed to do. Uh, then in 2008, I bought him out
Mm-hmm.
and paid him off in 18. So
Mm-hmm.
we grew from, pretty small, and I don't know what the numbers were back then, but even in '08, we were doing maybe, we had a huge client from '08 through 11 that did
Mm-hmm.
about $2.5 million worth of fence,
Mm-hmm.
and got us in. We started doing excavation as well. I think we were probably somewhere in a mil and a half then. This year we're going to probably hit about 12 mil.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a little bit more. And
Mm-hmm.
then we added in excavation, and really 2 years ago got into the commercial space, which is a totally different animal. It's totally different on cash flow. It's not like working for, in the residential world, smaller projects. You get a good sized deposit, you get paid in full when you're done. I just got paid today. I actually got the email this morning for a job we did in October.
Wow. Wow.
So it's just it was a whole different game, and I was really struggling last year with that. It was just trying to get a handle on it. In 2020, we dove into an enterprise computer system for our business to go all in one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is arguably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, to get everybody on point with that, and in the system and using it properly. We're only starting to see that now, almost 3 years later. It's crazy. Um, so we're that was a real big challenge for me, and just for us as an organization. And then on top of it, it was like COVID hit, so we ran out of toilet paper. Two by fours went from freaking $8 to
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Four by fours went nuts. It was 2020 was insane, and I thought it was going to get better in 2021, and it actually got worse.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
I was like, what? I just
Mm-hmm.
thought by a winter, but people went off the reservation. They couldn't go do things, and so they
Yep.
went and built stuff. It was great, and at the same time, it was like I said, it was almost too much. Like, yeah, it's great that I'm getting water, but through a fire hose isn't really the way I was picturing this.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like,
Y-
yeah, rip my eyelids off almost. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people had a lot of time to think and a lot of time to spend money.
Right.
And yeah, it benefited a lot of people for sure. You have 50 people now you employ, Dan?
When we're rolling, we're going to be at about 50. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, with that. And
Yep.
then I've got a girl that's managing our Blueberry property on
Hmm.
that end, and then like a gardener girl that comes in and just takes
Hmm.
care of the whole property, because we're going to be at 250 acres this year, so
Yep.
there's kind of a lot going on with that, and we like to keep things nice.
Yeah, so let's tie that in for listeners because we're bouncing around and that's fine, but I'll tie it in. So we've got Danimal Land, the bike track, which we're gonna get into here in a second again. Daniel Barden Mudfest, obviously Williams Fence, the bread and butter, and then you just purchased a beautiful, beautiful property that borders you, the Blueberry Brook Farm Resort. Um, So let's circle back quick to Danimal Land. What is the vision with that? I'm curious myself. Like, what do you're creating a mountain bike track along some beautiful property, and you're in Deansboro, New York. What is this just a personal thing for you, or do you see this as a business thing, or what do you see with that?
So I see it as certainly a personal thing. I love being able to go out the back door and just jump on the trails. It's like I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to do a quick 35-minute lap and I can do that. But ultimately, what I see happening in the mountain bike industry is a shift to e-bikes,
Mm-hmm.
which, some would say, oh, that's lazy riding or whatever. But I would disagree. I've been talking to people about this and you just ride more.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So the e-bike thing, what I'm seeing is we don't have to be in Vermont anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
with the e-bikes now, I can make a mountain out of a molehill, which is really what we have. When you're like, oh, how much vertical do you have? You're like 140 feet. That's kind of not great if you're like, oh, I love doing downhill. Um, but if you've got an e-bike, you can do the way we're structuring Danimal Land is we've got the most amazing glacial terrain that God ever created.
Mm-hmm.
We have these natural half pipes, beautiful pastoral views out in my farm. So I'm actually reimagining my farm. I got rid of the cows last fall, first time in 30 years we don't have any
Oh,
cows.
really? You got rid of your cows?
Yeah, I just found it to be, it was like, all right, here's a good opportunity. Our fence lines are 30 years old, 30,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
33 years old on the perimeter fence. So I was like, all right, what I want to do is not deal with cows getting out because I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
cutting fence lines and I'm going to create these mountain bike lines on the farm. Similar, if you ride in Europe, you ride big open lines. And we've got
Mm-hmm.
these awesome views here. And on our farm, I can see 30 to 40 miles. It's
Yep.
it's just so spectacular. My Labradoodle's going to his dog bed, Rippleton. So, my goal is to just keep recycling our fence material. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been doing, going down in the swamp. I can pound scrap chain link pipe into the ground. I'm buying GRKs and screws, which are like they're like a structural tech screw.
Mm-hmm.
And I can make a couple 100 feet of boardwalk a day once the material's in sight. And
Mm-hmm.
I can actually make it do this. I can create what they call pump. And so that between that and the actual terrain, I'm looking to make a place where people want to come and stay and ride their bikes. Or if they don't stay, they come and they ride for the day. I've got
Mm-hmm.
our property now adjoins the towpath.
Yep.
And
Yep.
my long-term vision is to see this place be like the Kingdom Trails in Vermont, where people are like, man, that's like mountain bike mecca for New York. You know, we have
Yeah.
we have 25 miles of trail in Tassel that Ed Letta, he's like the president of the Thursday Night Mountain Bike Club, has
Mm-hmm.
made. We've got Brookfield has got an awesome trail system. Colgate University does. Hamilton College. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
go too far, you're at Hinckley. There's a guy in Verona that's actually made a decent trail system,
Mm-hmm.
Rock Hill. So that long vision would be that people could ride in from Clinton or wherever on the trail on the towpath and pop into the trail, or they stay here in one of our tiny houses or at the Blueberry Farm or at my Sunnybrook property,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
ride.
Yeah, so you're making it a destination. Yeah, that's it. And what's cool here is that you're bringing together so many different things, right? So you're building the bike track, you're tying it in to the Blueberry Brook Farm Resort and your different real estate. You mentioned some tiny homes, and maybe some rentals. Like this is almost like an all exclusive destination in Deansboro that you're creating.
Yeah, that's right. And also like we don't really get winter anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's just a fact. I mean, I've got Danimal Land skis that I bought for when I could ski. I was gonna go out this morning. I'm like, it's already wind affected. It's garbage. You can't
Hmm.
even make turns on it. But you can ride a fat bike. So I've got a studded fat bike with 4-inch tires. I'm gonna make flow trails that you can absolutely just send it. I'm catching air on a fat bike, and it is fun. I know it's like, oh, fat bike. It's carbon. It's pretty light. It goes pretty well. And if you give it the E assist, you can generate more speed with that. So
Hmm.
almost like I don't want to say motocross track, but definitely like I'm building a skills park out back by the cabin at the top of Danimal Land, so you can practice different drops. And for myself, like I've been sober for 4 years now, and the only legal and reoccurring drug is adrenaline. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
endorphins,
Yep.
laughter, just
Yep.
all those things. That's what I'm really leaning into my sobriety and working with Hamilton College kids right now. I've got a kid that's interning with me to give them alternatives to just getting hammered, passing out, and maybe having
Yep.
sex. I don't know. Um,
Yep.
that there's another way. That
That really resonates with me, Dan, because yeah, I've been off the alcohol train for I don't know, probably 8 years now. Pretty strict, if not entirely strict. And I find that yes, you need a replacement, right? And so the adrenaline slash energy output with physical movement is a fabulous replacement for that. So hearing you say that, I didn't know that you sober for 4 years. Like that's amazing.
Oh, well, it's a story, but when all of your stuff is in suitcases out in 4 inches of really good snow, you should be skiing, and then you're not because you celebrated the second best job you ever had by going to Marble Hill, and then you didn't come home. So
Sure.
I yeah, I thank God that it happened because I was
Hmm.
just kind of I was getting close. I've been really strict on my yoga practice.
Yep.
I found that to be, really good for my flexibility
Hmm.
and also just going into a room and shutting up for 70 minutes. There isn't any talking.
Yep.
Um, so I was already doing that 5 days a week and then getting hammered on a Friday night, feeling like, dog crap even Monday.
Yep.
And then that happened, and I just flipped a switch. I made
Yep.
a deal. I was like, Melissa, I'm I'm never gonna drink again. Okay,
Hmm.
that's a fact. But I want to buy skis. I want to buy bikes. I want to do these things, and I just don't want to really hear. I don't want any pushback on that. And then
Yep.
if there's steep powder in Utah and I want to go ski it, I want the hall pass. I don't want,
Yep.
you don't need to worry. I'm going to go out there and do what I did. I don't even know, Josh, for the love of God. I think back, I skied Jackson back in, I think maybe 2016, and we skied hard. I mean, I'm all in. I'm not suicidal, but it sure does seem it sometimes. Uh, and I was just like hammering all day, and then we're closing the bar down, and
Yep.
to think like, what on earth was I doing? I was running 40 miles in Ragnar Cape Cod, getting hammered the night before and drinking while I was doing it, and it's like
Yep.
I just finally came to realize like I didn't love myself.
Sure.
I mean, what are you doing?
Sure.
So I've
You're
really been confronting that.
yeah, you're destroying the physical and mental side of what makes us all amazing, right?
Yeah. Well, for me, it
Yeah.
was like I can do these things, like I'm okay, I'm Superman, like I'm somehow gonna do this, and
Hmm.
I can do it. It was not sustainable,
Yeah,
you know,
sure. Sure. I
not at
remember
all.
the Ragnar. I remember that Ragnar. You posted a lot of stuff on Facebook, I think.
Yeah.
And dude, that had me belly laughing like you. And I kept saying to myself, like, how does he do that? Like he's running insane distances, he's drinking, he's not sleeping. Like, how does he do this?
Oh my gosh. And then go home and go right back to work. Like,
Yeah,
drive home Sunday, Monday, put in a 16-hour day. Like,
yeah.
hey, it's nothing. Like I said, I was blessed with ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
And I was also, we had to do hard things on the farm when I was a kid. So,
Yep.
kind of taking all of those things, I definitely had a penchant for suffering
Mm-hmm.
for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Um, but ultimately, the more I had dove into this, and honestly, like hiring a coach, you talk about like, did we work on plans? My
Mm-hmm.
first coaching session, I cried for 2 hours
Really? Sure.
nonstop.
Yep.
My
Mm-hmm.
coach lost his son to a drug addiction. Great family. You think you did everything right, and the kid
Mm-hmm.
was abused by a family member, and um, it led to that drug addiction, and he ended up losing his life um, to it at 21 years old.
Wow.
It opened up the floodgates on that, and for me, and I started thinking like, as bad as things are for you right now, Scott, I mean, I can't imagine losing a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a horrible, horrible thing. That's a lot of what we really worked on. And then so we do like an hour. We did a 90-minute session to start, I guess, just to circle back on that. And then once a month we get together as a group. There's 12 to 13 other business owners that are or CEOs that are in our group, and we
Mm-hmm.
spend an 8-hour day just working on our businesses. We problem solve. We're accountable to check in on our physical, mental, personal, and our business um,
Mm-hmm.
state each month,
Mm-hmm.
1 to 10 on a ranking, and then we just help each other. And that's really, to me, a lot of the things that I've been working on over the last year were certainly, certainly finance and cash flow. We've had great speakers come in, and I said to Scott, I mean, it's just insane. Either you're mind reading for me, or you're just bringing in the right person at the right time for whatever I'm
Wow.
dealing with at the time. But it's been insanely beneficial, and I look forward to it every month, to get together with the group.
Sure.
Um,
And that's a huge part of your success and clarity in the last 4 years also, right? Like not focusing as much on the social drinking aspect, and now you're more dialed in with the business, more clear. You have the mentorship and accountability with that group, right?
Yeah, definitely. What I had to do though with this is, like we talk about replacing one thing with another,
Hmm.
is to just say, all right, what did you talk about all these things. It's like, all right, you did Danimal Land, you did the mud run, you rebooted your ERP system, you bought a Blueberry property, you bought another investment house, oh, you bought another farm. Uh, you're developing a machine that doesn't exist in the world, and then you're moving into a new space in business. um, that's a lot.
Yep.
And so him and I have been talking about just getting hyper focused on three things at a time, and
Okay.
really just driving those those things, doing like a 3-month block, 90-day block, and really focusing in on that. um, my my ultimate goal was to hit stage one retirement at 50,
Yep.
which was to get like 4 months of time to do what I need to do.
Sure.
Maybe not contiguous. And I believe I'm going to get there by September.
Yep.
It's, we've got the right people in place. We're just putting our processes, really getting those dialed in, and the accountability that wasn't there. Um,
Hmm.
we're getting that dialed in, and then the folks that are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's just check-ins. So I do a huddle up in the morning with my direct reports now, and it's a 15-minute everyday thing. Hey,
Hmm.
what's positive? What positive happened yesterday? Where are you stuck? What do you need help with? And just gets us communicating, up and down the chain of command.
Hmm.
That wasn't really going on because I was that, crazy guy. Nobody could follow that.
Sure.
it was just
Sure.
too much. And so my coach is really like Danimal, he calls me. He's like, let's keep Danimal on the down low, in the work environment. Let's not go in the office and, run around. Let's be more methodical about this.
Hmm.
And so that's my goal. I'm really leaning into uh having a plan, being very disciplined about that. And I think through that process, I'm going to get my time back.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
think I know,
Hmm.
because we have amazing people. I mean, I've got the last of the farm kids out in the field.
Yep.
Great folks in the office. Uh, it's just being the right leader, not
Hmm.
crazy. I think about Richard Branson. It's like Richard Branson
Yep.
owns what, 400 businesses.
Yep.
So what's he spend like 3/4 of a day at each one of them? Um,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
he set a system up. He hired really good people. Does he
Yep.
win every day everywhere? Probably not. Um,
Hmm.
but he's been able to really delegate and step back and live a life that's really rad, right?
Yeah, and what you're describing, Dan, is you have and are refining building a business and not a job, right? Most small business owners create a job for themselves and not a business that operates with systems and structure so it can operate when they're gone. Correct?
Yeah, that was the big, issue. I came out of the field December 30th a year ago, and I had been in an excavator, running jobs. We were so overbooked. We didn't have enough project managers. So rather than train up, I was training one guy, and I was on a project with him. We did the Cree Nano Center in Utica.
Mm-hmm.
We did the fence
Mm-hmm.
around that, which that was a big deal. We did the Cree Nano Center. We did the Olympic Oval. Um,
Wow.
we did the Sky Dome netting project, which I think most people wouldn't know. That's one of the it's the first of its kind in the country, and we actually designed and built it. Josh Bader, my cousin that went to Waterville and basically got a degree. He got a diploma, but he really took that on. Um, that we had all that going on in one year, plus a bunch of solar fields, plus a bunch of excavation, plus a bunch of private work, whether it was residential or
Mm-hmm.
agricultural. And but I came out of the field on December 30th, and I was just like, "Oh my God, what? I don't even know what's going on here," because I'm on one project and there's seven others going on. No one's really reporting. Half of the team isn't using the system the way that it's designed. And I just said, "Screw it! I am not going back into the field.
Yep.
I'm going to get my hands around this," and that's what we did over the last year. It was just we tipped the whole thing upside down, emptied out every cabinet, and started fresh with our ERP system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and started working on the business, not in it, like you said.
Yeah.
Developed our process flow chart and eliminated myself from the process.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's critical. I've done something similar, obviously on a smaller scale, but I only coach 2 to 3 sessions a week, down from like 30.
wow.
Yeah, I do some remote coaching. Again, that's on my own time and very autonomous. But as far as commitments to in-person sessions per week, yeah, I got to work on the business, and it's paid off for sure. We have amazing trainers that I always say they do what I was doing better, most likely.
Yeah.
And now I can work on the bigger 30,000 foot view type stuff, exactly what you're describing. I resonate with that.
It's hard because I you build those habits over so much time that you start to feel like a failure, or I
Yep.
feel like I'm lazy,
Yep. Yep.
um, and I'm not there even yet. Even
Hmm.
on the management side of it. So now, if I'm going to be the CEO and the leader, I have three jobs.
Yep.
I'm in charge of looking at the three reports that make make the business go, numero uno. The second thing is the culture
Hmm.
and making sure that that's strong. That got damaged last year with the whole, hey, we're not going to do what we were doing here.
Hmm.
People really got upset with that. But at the end of the day, um, culture is also about doing things in a way that makes sense, in a way
Hmm.
that's measurable, in a way that's repeatable. And, you know, part of what I said was, I'm not going to be a giant a-hole about this. We're going to be the New England Patriots. We are. I always thought about that with fence. People would show up on my jobs, and I could run a 100-mile race just off the running I did on jobs. I did not
Hmm.
train. I went out and ran 83 miles on zero training, just building fence.
Yep.
Every single day I looked at it was I was going to win the Super Bowl, you
Yep.
know, and that's what I have been working on the last year is like, guys, if we're going to win the Super Bowl, okay, we have got to be looking at film. We have got to be looking at results and seeing how do we get better. We have got
Hmm.
to be looking at how we're doing because that informs us on how we're bidding it. Are we bidding this correctly or not? And getting that mindset set shifted. We have a thing at Williams Fence where GSD, get shit done. That's great. I
Hmm.
still think that's what our customers love about us. Our guys do get shit done. They're like, oh my God, where did you find these people? They actually work. It's unbelievable. I hear that all the time, but
Hmm.
we weren't reporting it well. We weren't following our system the way it was designed. So that's the culture. And then the third is the vision. Um, we saw agriculture was absolutely in the toilet
Yep.
from 2016 to 20. I've
Yep.
never seen it that bad. And that was when we made that pivot to commercial and then on to solar. And that's my job is to see, hey, what's going to happen with this market with what we're doing right now? How long does
Yep.
that last? Right now we're looking at an unbelievable year coming up. I'm looking ahead, 5 years, 10
Hmm.
years, 15 years. Where is this organization going to be? And how do we survive? We've gotten 30 years this way by doing something similar. In the mid 90s, there was a ton of this watershed work. There was obviously a lot more farming going around here, a lot of smaller farms.
Yep.
Um, it's different now. You know that
Hmm.
that that really that watershed stuff, that work went away, and I saw that, and we made a pivot. And my job is to make sure that we're ready for whatever the future brings.
Hmm. Yeah, we
And
can we can
we don't
we
know.
can fight what things used to be, or we can adapt, you
Right,
know?
right.
Yeah. And
I
you see it
I
all the
just
time.
reread.
Yeah.
Absolutely. People are like, God dang it! I just want to go back to the way it was. And I was
Yep.
like,
Yep.
Do you have a time machine?
Hmm.
I mean, that's crazy. To me, you think about it. I'm 10 years older than you. When I went to college, email had we got our I was one of the first people to get an email address.
Hmm.
So I've seen this like, you know, absolutely we're on the exponential curve right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's even more important right now to be really looking far ahead because it could be,
Yep.
literally somebody comes up with something and suddenly you got a buggy whip business that's virtually worthless.
Totally.
It just can be. I think you saw that even with CrossFit that
Yep.
you
Yep.
made a shift
Yep.
because you could see that this is a thing, but is it too much for most people? It probably
Yep.
is.
100%. That was one of the best shifts we did. And I did it I did it when CrossFit was at its most popular. I saw the writing on the wall because of my experience in the trenches way ahead of a lot of people. Is yeah, we shifted to more of a holistic movement based practice versus intensity and beat the shit out of yourself and then have no one come back after 60 days, you know?
Right. Yeah. 100 burpees,
Yeah.
too much of anything is too much. Um,
Yeah. And I had to
Kind of.
also look at, and I'm sure you've done this too, but like who is the average demographic that we deal with, right? And we're dealing with, 40 to 70-year olds, 80% of which are beginners, and they want to live longer and feel better. That's who we work with, right?
Right,
And
right.
now that's not to say we don't work with high-end athletes. We do. I have remote clients. We have clients in person that are, very, very fit, but it's not the 80%. That's maybe the 5 to 10%. And so, how we presented and sort of the vision and, messaging of where I saw the future of exercise, that was a correct shift on our part for sure. And
Oh,
you're doing the
yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, we see the solar industry right now and what's going on with it. And
Yep.
basically the way I was like, oh my gosh, we've been training for this day because our bread and butter was agricultural fence. We were putting,
Yep.
well, and even residential. My motto was I want it to look like the fence fairy put it up. So when we come into your yard or we go onto your farm, when we're done, you didn't sign up for like completely redoing your lawn or your
Yep.
field, like leaving ruts. I want them to be like, what did they use a helicopter? Like what happened here? There's no ruts. They were very thoughtful about what we did. And what I'm seeing in the solar industry right now is just carnage.
Mhm.
It's thought less. We're ready to go on this, and what I'm hearing from our these companies that we're working for, they're like, man, these are the best sites that in the state. Our fence, we work for a company that is from Maine to Maryland to Michigan, and we're basically the gold standard for fence that they show in
Mhm.
their PM meetings, across all those states. And I'm proud of that because,
Mhm.
like I said, that's something that was important to me when we were working for private clients. You didn't want to come home and be like, yeah, I love the fence, but I'm not loving the fact that I got to hire a landscaper because you guys just dropped an atom bomb on my shit here. That's that, and so I'm really excited about that. Is it going to be a 3-year window? Is it a 5-year window? Is it
Mhm.
a 10-year? What is that next thing? That's what I'm already thinking about. And then hedging. We've moved away from the residential right now because it's just it's hard to do all these things.
Sure.
And so we're going to work for some high-end residential clients for sure. We've got 6,000 customers over the past 30 years. We're going to continue to service those. We're going to do the high-end ag fence. We're really good at doing. We did a 90-mile fence job for a guy. Um,
Wow. 90 miles of fence?
yeah, 90.
Where was that?
North of Cooperstown, actually.
Oh man. So he owned all that property, obviously, right?
Yeah, it was funny because it was right when the market crashed, right in September, and I was working in
Mhm.
Oriskany Falls, and I got the call, "Hey, I got this guy that wants to do 100 acres of beef fence," and I was like, nobody's really doing that. Um, yeah, I want to do 100 acres. So I was like, "Oh, okay." Um, Shot him a price, no problem. We did it. And then he was like, rolled out the maps. He's like, I'm buying all these farms. And it was like, wow.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. And then it just went. And it was about a 2.5-year project. It was on a lot of, I'd say over half the project was on solid rock. And so
Wow.
we had a drill that was at the time, $100,000 drill. It was it could do most rock, but the rock up there was harder than woodpecker lips. It was insane rock. Not consistent. It was limestone with like just a variety of issues. Not pleasant to drill. So we ended up learning how to drill in that rock, and we had to put a post every 12 feet. So if you do the math on it, there's a shitload of posts. So we learned
Wow.
a lot about all those things. We developed our
Hmm.
process to we were doing 8-wire fence, which normally we were doing 4, but this guy was like Howard Hughes crazy, so we had to do a lot more. Doug, if you're listening, you were crazy. But any rate, we ended up really learning a lot on that, and we're using it today. We're drilling on rock on a lot of these solar sites. They tend to put them in wet places, places with poor
Hmm.
soil or no soil. So we
Hmm.
really are poised to, take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's man, yeah, that's cool. That vision piece at 3, 5, 10 years out, I think more business owners need to be doing that. I'm trying to get better at it myself. Because it's a struggle because a lot of what you're predicting could be wrong too, right? You hope you're more right than you are wrong.
Right.
Um, right?
So we're actually leaning into a process called metronomics, and is a
Hmm.
book written by Shannon, and her last name escapes me. She wrote this three hag way first. She started and sold two companies that just insane valuation in a very short
Hmm.
time by using this process, and it's a hairy, audacious goal. So my
Hmm.
leadership team and I went out to Rochester and we met with this guy Michael, who's going to end up being our coach, not just myself, but it's CEO plus leadership coach. So really, that was the one thing that I've noticed in the last year is great. I've gotten all this training, and I'm like sprinkling that knowledge into the organization. But now I'm bringing him in to help coach up the entire organization and really
Hmm.
get us to that next level, so that I can go do the things that I want to do over here at Danimal Land and just look over and see the
Hmm.
business running as it should.
Hmm.
But we set a 30-year, what he called the 30-year Harry, or Shannon calls the 30-year Harry audacious goal. And it's not numbers based. It's very esoteric, and you know that most people aren't going to be in the organization in 30 years. But it
Sure.
gives you that, like, hey, we're going there. And then you scale back from
Yep.
there and you say, all right, here's my 3-year goal. And this is totally
Hmm.
attainable. And then here's my 2-year, 1 year. And then we break it down to 90 days. And then we,
Hmm.
like that periodization that you do with working out, like you don't just say,
Hmm.
hey, I'm just gonna, do this forever. You set like a time frame and say, all right, I'm gonna do this over this amount of time, and this is what I'm looking to accomplish, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then that 30-day gets you back to what do I do every day? Um, we've created a plan for, like the next 7 weeks, and you just keep working on that goal, as it relates to your 3 year.
Yeah, what you're describing is like a process in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I don't know if you read
I
that.
have read that.
Um, you did read
Yeah,
it?
it's a great book.
Yeah, so right, you have the goal, but that's not the primary importance. It's the system, right? And the systems and the small processes to get you to the goal, which is where 95% of your energy should be. And then the goal will be what it is, right? If you do the system correctly.
Correct.
Uh, yeah, exactly. That was a huge Pete Lombardi, you know
Oh
Pete.
yeah.
He told me about that book about Christmas time, and I flew through it. That shifted my whole perspective going into 2023 because I was very like up until now very goal oriented and um maybe numbers based and more of not systems thinking at all. It was more like I want to be here, so let's go here versus how do you get here.
Right.
And that was a big discovery for me. So what you're describing is that it sounds like.
Yeah, and the we're definitely in a going to be it's going to be rooted in numbers and finance for sure.
Sure.
But the things that we do, the habits that we form, so if we do what we're supposed to do, we start with the right ingredients, and we're doing these things on a daily basis, then
Yep.
we're going to get, maybe we don't get there, but we're going to get darn close. And
Mm-hmm.
when we're
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
evaluating what we're doing and we're holding ourselves accountable every day to just the basics, I just shifted what I'm doing back in, like, in terms of diet in maybe September, and
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't looking. I never stepped on the scale. I still haven't. My measuring stick
Yep.
was, my wife's like, it looks like you crapped your pants. I think you need to put a belt on. And I was like, damn, I've got long johns on and they're still sliding off. So, but it was all about just being disciplined in my fasting. So I started
Mm-hmm.
fasting, the 16 hours, and I just got
Yep.
really disciplined into that. Did I occasionally fall off the wagon? Sure. Did I screw up
Mm-hmm.
once, here or there? But
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't looking at it like that. It was like I was generally doing those things most of the time. And when I,
Yep.
and the result was I've got these awesome Patagonia Pal Slayer pants that didn't fit in August. They were size small, which you know me, I'm a decent sized guy, but the medium was too long. And I was like, goddamn Patagonia. The medium fits good in the waist, but it's too long. And I hate that shit. So I put the smalls, I hung them right up so I could see them every day right there. And I just went to work. And, by the time I went on my trip here, it was like, no problem. I put them on, skied in them, didn't blow the zipper out, and we're
Mm-hmm.
doing good.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
that book changed my mindset. I've read countless books over the last year, and that was part of getting into this leadership group. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had really stopped educating myself because I was so busy working in the business. It was just like,
Mm-hmm.
you're like a dairy farmer. My dad always said, they don't even, they're shoveling that shovel gutter. They got 7 cows over there and they're working their balls off for, these 7 extra cows, and they don't even pick their head up enough to say, does this even make sense? What am I doing here?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. That resonates, yeah, with me a lot. It's asking yourself, does this even make sense with whatever you're doing? Eating, training, business, friendship. And those are hard questions to ask because a lot of the times you know the answer, you just don't want to face it.
oh my gosh. Yeah. I would, um, there's, I would get into arguments with people about, um, like political stuff. And I'm full disclosure, like I personally, um, I value people that tell the truth. I value, respect. Um, I value hard work. I think if I look at what we have going on in a red or blue thing in this country, both sides are missing the mark at such a wide range that it drives me nuts, and
Me too.
was driving me nuts. And then I was like, my coach comes in, he goes, "Turn the news off. Don't even look
Yep.
at it. Don't even listen to
Yep.
it. You can't affect that. It's
Mm-mm.
taking up space in your head, and just focus on you and what you can do."
Mm-hmm.
And that was really what got
Mm-hmm.
me back into mud run mode. That got me really motivated in working with the people in my orbit and having a positive
Mm-hmm.
effect on them. uh, I
Mm-hmm.
was I was just like, this is crazy. Here we are missing the mark left or right, and I'm in the middle. Like, hey, what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
We're so I those kinds of things were going on, and it was like I was shooting myself in the foot. I now recognize that, and that's part of the coach too, is just pointing out those blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
His job
Mm-hmm.
is not to tell me how great I'm doing. I mean, he does definitely say, "Hey, you've made awesome improvement. I like where we're going." We're
Mm-hmm.
also taught, and also I'm seeing that there's some areas that you can improve on, opening my mind up to
Yeah.
it.
This is a reoccurring theme in this conversation. I didn't see it going this way, but it's great. The importance of mentorship in coaching, accountability, and a plan, whether it's, like we said, in business, which is a lot of this conversation, but health in general, like you worked with us, you've worked with other people. I've worked with lots of coaches. It's sort of the circle of like helping hands.
Yes.
And to think that and you are an ultra driven guy, and you can't do it on your own, right? I look at myself as pretty motivated and disciplined, and I can't do it on my own.
No.
And so for all the other people that fall below that spectrum, you definitely can't do it on your own. And that's not, me being critical here. It's just reality. And so, if you do have a goal, I highly recommend reaching out to, a business coach, a nutrition coach, a fitness coach, a finance coach. Um, and like you said, it's been just a few years for you now, and just things have catapulted with that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so stuck in so many places, and like I can't really I can't figure this out. I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
A lot of the books I've been reading lately, it's like, wow, Andrew Carnegie. I thought of
Yeah.
him as like an ne'er-do-well who just, was successful because he probably came from money. And then once you read the book and you read, Think and Grow Rich,
Yeah.
or
That's one of my favorite books,
it
Dan.
really is. It's timeless. It's crazy to think that that was
Yep.
written over a century ago and or almost a century ago, and it still applies today, of, like I said, those standards, of being truthful, of being honest, of being pleasant, because nobody really wants to work for the a-hole. Um, and
Yep.
we can see that Andrew Carnegie, his greatest talent wasn't that he knew everything. His greatest talent was recognizing that he didn't, and he surrounded himself with people much smarter than him that knew those things. I think the Henry
Hmm.
Ford story of Henry suing, I forget if it was a newspaper or somebody for slander because they called him an ignorant man, and uh, and he was like, they're asking him questions. Do you know what the longitude and latitude is of this, or do you know like what this is? And he was like, "It's all horseshit." He's like, "All I know is if I have a question about something, I have a stable of people that I can call up and reference and say, hey, can you get me the numbers on this? Hey, what's the longitude and and I can get to that number." To me, that's smarter person than ripping through every book to learn everything. Can't do.
When I read that part that you just described, that shifted so many things for me. So many things, like having access and the skill set to get answers is much better than knowing all the answers.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
it
powerful. That's very
it
powerful.
really is. I when I went on my Ricky trip, van trip 2 years ago, I the first stop on the trip was all about meeting this guy, Sean King, Mr. Fence, out in Evansville, Indiana. And Sean,
Hmm.
oh my God, if you meet Sean, if you think I'm on, wow, this guy's like, if I'm 10, he's like level 100. Insane. He literally ran this fence business and it was running him into the ground. His wife was dying of cancer. He had four kids.
Mm.
They had their fourth kid while she had cancer and had to make a decision whether to abort or not do the treatment. And she said, I want to have the kid, didn't do the treatment. Um, Actually survived cancer for a few years after that and ultimately lost her life
Mhm.
in 2018. Um,
Wow.
I was able to spend 7 hours with Sean King. He took me around, showed me his operation and what he was up to. And that was really the started to get me going in the right direction of thinking about
Hmm.
working on the business. Um,
Hmm.
Here's a guy who was working nights as a cop so they could have health insurance, so his wife could get treatment, and working on his fence business during the day, kinda. Um,
Hmm.
and was able to make it happen. Just remarkable. There's so many people out there that I've met over the last, well, my lifetime in general that have inspired me, but in particular, the last few years when I started to really dive into um, this
Hmm.
part of, like I said, working on the business, not being one of the gears in it where it was dependent upon me. That I
Hmm.
got to meet Sean and some other folks in the fence industry around the country that are, just have been really instrumental in helping me get to that place of, hey, you don't need to know it all. You need to surround yourself, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge. Yeah, that's cool hearing you say. That's a good reminder for me too. For listeners, you're I want them to know that you're quite the athlete. You've done a lot of cool physical stuff. You continue to push the limits. I'm curious, what's the most difficult physical challenge that you've ever had to complete? You've done a lot of crazy shit. I'm curious to see if you have one thing that really sticks out.
Man, I mean, I rode my bicycle across Canada and down the Pacific Coast back in '93. That was, yeah,
Really?
4,260 miles.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow, I didn't know
I
that.
was a biker, by kind of like I started mountain biking. I think I had one of the first mountain bikes in the area. It
Hmm.
just wasn't a thing, back in the early '90s. And I read Jack Kerouac, on the road. And
Yeah.
I had just completed my freshman year in college. I ran cross country, indoor and outdoor track, which 70 miles a week. You hit the gym. There was absolutely no break. Cross country ended on Saturday. Monday we started track. I was
Hmm.
super burned out. Had a damn stomach thing going on. I was down to about 145 pounds. And I was just like, said to my parents, I'm not going back to school in the fall. I'm going to ride my bike to Colorado and spend a semester out there working for this guy, Tom, who had he was building houses on the Front Range north of Denver.
Hmm.
So they were all pissed off and worried and whatever. I went over to Guy's Bike Shop in Madison and I was buying the panniers that go on your bike. They're like the little suitcases that go on the front and the back.
Hmm.
And liquidating all my shit, sold my truck. And fortunately, that day, it's weird how life is. I meet this guy, Terry Elzinga. Um, this guy's crazy. He had a mountain bike too. He was, gosh, Chief's probably 15, 20 years older than me. And he's talking about wiping out on the bike and going over the handlebars. And then he looks over at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm riding my bike across country." And he's like, "Well, shit, my best friend Todd's riding his bike across country. He just graduated from Colgate. You should look him up." So I ended up calling the guy. And we ended up going for a ride. We rode 41 miles around Skinny Atlas Lake and
Hmm.
kind of hit it off. And it was like, screw it, let's give it a whirl. So we had a 2-man tent. We left Casanova on August 1st, '93, and yeah, it was one of the most amazing and difficult experiences of my life. Um, he was going to California and I was going to Colorado. We were planning on riding through the states, and fortunately for us, it's like one of those things how life is. Day two, we meet these two guys that were coming across the country from Seattle, and they were like, "Hey, if you got a choice, go into Canada." We got messed with so
Hmm.
hard in the Dakotas and Montana by the rednecks and the
Hmm.
Indians. We got our bikes stolen. It was yeah.
Wow,
Oh
really?
yeah,
Jeez.
they were on backup bikes. They had actually gone with their wives. It was like a honeymoon thing. The wives actually ended up flying home. They were like, "Screw this." So we took the Peace Bridge into Buffalo, into Canada, and we went up and around the lakes. Um, I tell people the seat felt like a broom handle wrapped in barbed wire. Um, so my ass did not fully callus until I got to Calgary. So that was like 2,000 miles in. Um, and the guy that I rode with was an animal, a really good biker. He would ride far ahead of me, climb up on a cliff, take a picture of me going by, and come back down. It pissed me off so bad. Um, and the wind on the prairies was every day in your face. We were doing like 6 miles an hour going nowhere. It was freaking insane. So you couldn't stand up because your legs are smashed and you're catching wind, but you couldn't sit down because your ass, like I said, felt like you're on a broom handle wrapped in barbed wire. So that was really, really tough. Once I got to Calgary, I got my callus on my ass finally, and I really hit my stride. I was really crushing it by the time we went. We rode into Vancouver, like through the mountains, through the Canadian Rockies, and then so it took us 6 weeks to get to Vancouver. We went down Vancouver Island, took the ferry over to Washington, and then took the 101 south until we hit Highway 1, and we rode straight down the coast of California, which is not down. It goes down into a cove, back up. It was so
Mhm.
hilly. It was insane. Um, and then rode across the Golden Gate on September 25th, '93. So
Wow. So how long did that take you total?
eight
4,200
eight
miles?
weeks. We averaged 95 miles a day. Um,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, Dan, I did not know. I've known you a long time. Holy cow.
In terms of like sustained, like really, really tough, that was like my benchmark. And I tell people like that really set me up for success in life because it was
Sure.
this big, huge thing that we did, and we had to do it one pedal stroke at a time. That was our mantra.
Hmm.
Todd was actually
Hmm.
he was actually the best man at my wedding, and I was the best man at his wedding.
No
It
way.
could have gone the other way. We could have totally I would pull ahead of him just to fart in his face when we were riding. I say that like we joked around. We had a great time. But it was very difficult. On the short end of it, I ran a 100K race back in 17, 62
Hmm.
mile in Vermont, and that was I didn't train enough for it. I was still drinking then, and I think I got hammered the week of it too. I got to 50 miles and I was like seriously questioning my sanity. That last 12 miles was
Hmm.
had to go super deep. I'd say that
Hmm.
was probably in terms of like a single day thing. I did run 83 miles of 100 and crashed out when I was 29, 20 years ago now.
Hmm.
But I had not
Hmm.
trained at all for that. That was pretty biblical. I was crawling. I crawled the last 2 miles through the woods, so that was pretty rough.
Wow. Wow. Well, if that's not inspiring to people listening, I don't know. I don't know what is. Oh man, that's awesome, dude. So what advice would you give a 20-year-old that's confused about the direction of their life, maybe struggling with motivation and clarity? What advice would you give them? There's a lot of people, 20 to 30, or 16 to 30, or 35, even anywhere, that is just confused. What would you give for them for advice?
I would stop listening to other people in the media
Yeah.
in general as a starter, because people tend to want to keep you in the crab pot. And I see
Hmm.
that all the time, and I've heard that, and it really just pisses me off and motivates me when people are like, "You can't do that." I'm like, huh, "Okay." Even if it's not the right idea, chances are I'm gonna pound it out. And just find something that gets you out of bed. Turn off, stop distracting yourself with a lot of what other people are doing and a lot of the nonsense, and find something that just motivates you, whatever that is, and run with it until you find that next thing. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
I would say get yourself uncomfortable. And
Yep.
I tell my cross country kids, I'm like, make friends with pain and you'll never be alone. Uh,
Yep.
get out of the comfort zone. This idea that
Yep.
everything's going to be great. I'm going through. I've created stress in my life. That's like that next rung on the ladder. You're like, damn, I'm hanging here by my fingertips right now, and I got to get my other hand up there, and embrace that.
Hmm.
That's okay. Um, the other would be that this notion, and this is my biggest problem with education, is it's failure is a problem,
Yep.
and that paralyzes people to do anything. Do I know if the Danimal
Yeah.
Land trail system is going to be a thing? No.
Yeah.
Do I know how it's exactly going to monetize itself over time? No. Uh, I just know that when I put my mind to anything over the years, has it always it's worked out.
Hmm.
Has it
Hmm.
have am I still doing what I was doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago? No. There's going to be shifts, but if you decide you want to do something, freaking go for it, and don't worry about what other people are going to say.
Yeah, that's great advice. The piece around for me, when I stopped caring what the majority of people thought about me and the results or failures along the way, that really released me into a stratosphere where you're able to focus on what is of true value and importance to you and not be attached to the opinions of others. And I see so many people here at the gym through the years that prevent or stop themselves before they even start because of that fear.
Right.
And so hearing you say that is spot on. Yeah. So if there's a 40-year-old out there listening that wants to improve their health, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
I mean, I would start with diet. It's going to be the single biggest thing that you can do, and I would definitely hire a coach. If you think about
Mhm.
your only appreciable asset, it's your body. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that I lost sight of for, so many years was like, hey, I'm going to blow this. I know there's going to be some genome stuff that's going to happen in the next 10 years where we can stop the aging process and, we're going to put
Hmm.
grease
Hmm.
fittings in for your knees and stuff like that. Hire a coach and get started in investing in yourself and look at it as an investment. Truly,
Yeah.
if you think about the three-legged stool, and this is something that I'm been hyper focused on here for the last year, that it's the physical, it's the mental, and it's the spiritual. And if those things
Hmm.
are out of balance, any one of them, then the stool isn't gonna it's not gonna sit. Um, the
Yeah.
biggest thing that I was disappointing for me with COVID was it's like if you don't have pre-existing conditions, it's almost a 0% chance that you could die from it. It,
Yeah, I know.
and I was shouting it from the mountaintop. You don't need to outrun the grizzly bear here. You just got to outrun your buddy. And and by that I mean, if you get healthy, you won't die from COVID. But my God, you won't have type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. Cancer, heart disease, ambulatory issues. All those things improve as well. And it was like, why are we
Hmm.
not just screaming this
Yep.
from the mountaintop? Guys, this is a man on the moon mission right now. As a nation, we are extremely unhealthy. We don't have a healthcare problem. We have a health problem.
Yep.
We
Yep.
have,
That was the number one thing I said throughout that 2-year period, Dan, is I really thought America would have more of a get your shit in order with your health focus, and it was never mentioned.
I was just like, oh my gosh, why are we not doing this thing? I actually got kicked off the track by Don Neff, and Don, if you're listening, suck it. Um, I was training Dylan up on the track. It was just him and I during COVID early
Hmm.
on. Uh, seriously, got thrown off the track, and he was
Yep.
about ready to call the damn cops because we were out
Yeah.
there running repeats on the track. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
Yep.
The school
Yep.
systems, went into this state of paralysis when we could have been fostering physical fitness and
Totally.
this thing with mental health too. This is something that drives me insane because when we talk about these things and we condition our youth, hey guys, you got to be depressed because you went through COVID. You don't have to be shit. I had a
Yep.
good COVID because I
Yep.
went and made this trail system. I was faced with
Hmm.
not doing the mud run, not my kid not being able to go compete for his senior year, which was just so difficult for me to like,
Hmm.
here's a kid running 50 miles a week, doing all these things, and it was gone, right? And
Hmm.
and I'm
Hmm.
sitting there going, we're telling these kids that they should be this, they should be that, instead of talking ourselves into being more positive, into getting better resiliency and mindset. We're coddling
Hmm.
and we're basically saying, hey, this is where you need to be because, why?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. Same thing. I was training double sessions during COVID because there was nothing to do.
Right.
Yeah, right. I'd be in the gym in the morning, maybe some lower body, and then some aerobic work in the afternoon. And, I put on like 10 pounds of muscle. It's like, feeling pretty good. I had Ginny at home and Asher, and I'm pretty happy. Like you said, you had a pretty good COVID once you got squared away, and as did we.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I feel tough. It is tough for families that weren't really in that mindset, and then the kids were just
Yeah.
basically, I talked to parents where kids are just playing video games all day, not going outside.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
that's a big thing with our mud run too that I would just want to point out. So year three we started the Daniel Barden Adventure Scholarship. It's an 80-mile canoe trip from Blue Mountain to Tupper Lake. It's administered by the Clark Foundation Sports Center in Cooperstown. Jane Clark has been putting on this Odyssey canoe trip, which is basically like an outward bound program for 30 some years now. And so when we brought the mud run back, this would have been our fifth year doing the canoe trip. I was told by Jimmy, I can't get anybody to do anything down here at Clark. They're all scared of COVID still. Nobody wants to do anything.
Mhm.
And I was like, Jim, we're going to make this freaking canoe trip happen. So we started planning for last year's mud run in late February. The
Mhm.
event, I think, was like somewhere around was it the 30th? Somewhere in there. At any rate, I said, we're going to get this canoe trip going because I advertised it. I promised it. I've got kids that didn't go on this canoe trip. And the canoe trip is really designed. There's no video screens, there's no phones. You don't know anybody. You're in charge of something every day, whether you're navigating or you're cooking or you're an environmentalist or you're a photographer. Every kid has a
Mhm.
job. They pair them up. And I had heard such good things about what we were doing from the kids that had gone through the program because I would go into the schools and present, hey, I'm going to Clinton. Shoot, is it today? It might be today. I might have to jump off this. Any rate, I would present and I would hear about how awesome a time these kids had. And
Mhm.
I was like, Jim, we're going to make this happen. We were the only canoe trips that happened last year, and we got this done in
Sure.
a short period of time. And and what I heard from these kids was like, it was unbelievable experience of getting out there and finding out that they had grit because they got to carry the canoe a mile and a half on the longest portage. It it reinforced what I already know that we need to be doing more of this. It's not 16 kids. It's like how do we take it from that to making this, something that happens for more of them. At
Mhm.
Cortland, every kid goes through it that's in the phys ed department or
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
getting a phys ed degree. They go through that canoe
Yep.
trip. And every
Yeah.
every gym teacher that I talked to that went through that program is like, man, that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dan, you are definitely making a difference in this world. I thank you for that. Appreciate the time you've taken to educate us and inspire us. I would love to have another talk here in the near future when the studio is done. We're going to be shooting live video. We'll have you up for another conversation. How's that
That
sound?
sounds great, Josh. I really appreciate you doing this and motivating so many people. And
Hmm.
also just being a positive business owner in Deansboro. I'm super bullish about our area, and I know you are as well.
Yep.
We know that this is like the Shangri-La. We've got water and views and open spaces. Um,
Yes.
I want to just see us continue to thrive here in upstate.
Definitely, buddy. Well, I'm happy we are friends. I look forward to the future. How can listeners learn more about your amazing companies? You've got great websites, Williams Fence, Blueberry Brook Farm Resort, and the Daniel Barden Mudfest. How can they learn more about those companies and
Yeah,
missions?
so if you go to bardenmudfest.org, our event is May 6th this year. We got tons of bands lined up. It's going to be an awesome time. We're remodeling some obstacles and just going to do it even bigger this year. Williamsfarmfence.com is our website for our fence business, and then Blueberry Brook Farm Resort.com is our website for the blueberry property. So come and stay and uh, we've got tons of different trout fishing, hiking, biking. We're adding in some. We got blueberry picking coming in July. So yeah, it's we got a lot going on here.
That's awesome. Well, Dan, thank you. We will link to all those in the show description. And so for listeners, check those out. And for everyone listening, thank you. And we're see you on the other side.